School board order at 7:01. Roll call, Mr. Tenio, please.
Ms. Joy Beers. Mr. Richard Belts. Mr. David Bradley.
Here.
Mr. Nathan Foley.
Present.
Mr. Stephen Holland.
Here.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik. Mrs. Rita Spinelli. Here. Mr. Wayne Wentz. Mr. Larry Stern.
Here.
Okay, thank you.
So we're right at public comment. First would be Lisa Neff.
Hi, I'm Lisa Neff. I am a mother of 5 children from the Dayton School District. I just recently this year got my CDL to drive school bus for the Dayton School District as well. I'm speaking on behalf of parents who have expressed their concern with mandating masks for the 2021-22 school year. As we prepare to make a final decision, as you prepare to make a final decision on what to do with the mask in the fall, I'd like to share the preferences. This has become such a polarizing topic, and I think many people who might not want to have their kids in masks will be shy about standing up. So I'm here, even though I am shy, standing up to share my thoughts. I believe the data is firmly on the side of our position. The policy response to COVID, particularly as applied to all children. With these facts in hand, they become clear that if we are to continue masking our children for COVID with vaccines universally available to the at-risk, there will be no logical point at which we can unmask them. In other words, there is no end point. I understand I don't have time to read statistics and data, so I have just pinpointed some things if you'd like me to share them supporting the decision to unmask, and ask that you, moving forward, please look over it before finalizing your decision. So I don't know if you guys want to hear all the pinpoints that we have. Okay. Children are extremely low risk from death. The Delta has not changed the game. Children are still at extremely low risk of hospitalization or death from COVID. Mask mandates, especially in schools, do not reduce school or community transmission. Children are not super spreaders. The physical effects of wearing masks, there's numerous ones of those. The mental and emotional effects associated with wearing masks, there's a couple of those. So me personally, I'm not saying totally unmasked the whole entire time, because on the school bus, I understand we have to wear it, it's public transportation. So I get having your children wear it there. In high traffic areas, the hallway, whatever, I get wear it there. But if they're sitting at a desk in a classroom 3 to 6 feet away from their other peers, it's hard enough for these children, let alone having a mask on for 6 hours a day. I know my youngest child was in kindergarten last year. She had major anxiety from this. The mask was chewed up, soaking wet every single day. Behavior chart was flipped down for behaviors. Like, we're here to learn. We're not here to be disciplined on having a mask over your nose. So I just feel that if we can compromise, I appreciate it. Okay?
Natalie Hearn.
Hi, I'm Natalie Hearn. I'm going to just comment on the mask that we are looking to make required for this school year. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask a question, but I'll ask a question. How do you tell if a child is happy or sad? Can you answer that for me? How do you tell if a child is happy or sad?
Those kids are happy.
I can't
Facial.
by their facial
Facial expressions.
Correct.
And our children cannot show their facial expressions. A lot of kids are going to school, if they're sad, we don't know that they're sad. There's problems at home, they're coming to school, the teachers don't know what's going on because their face is covered. Are they happy? Are they enjoying school? We just need to do a better job at helping our children be happy so they don't have anxiety and that they can learn and not worry about if they have their mask on or not. Thank you.
I'm here tonight to address the issue of mask mandates. I'm a bit confused as to whether this is the Board of Education and not the Department of Health. Why is it even a question whether masks should be mandated or not, as masks are a medical device? As stated by the FDA, the use of masks have not been proven for antiviral protection. As a matter of fact, it even says on the box that it does not prevent the spread of the disease or infection. By placing this on our children, you are applying a medical device, and if you're going to act in this capacity, you are required to obtain informed consent. According to the FDA, then you need to provide the understanding and nature of a procedure or device, understand the risks and benefits, offer reasonable alternatives, and understand all the risks and benefits for all of these alternatives. It also states that consent cannot be obtained under coercion, meaning no undue influence, punishment, or reward. In my registration packet that I recently filled out for my son, I did not see any paper that provides me with the benefits, risks, or side effects of a child wearing a mask for 7 to 8 hours a day. I did not see an offer of other options, nor did I see anything asking for you to apply a medical device. Not only that, but I am pretty sure that saying that a child will not be able to attend in-person school, should you pass the mask mandate, which I sincerely hope you do not, and receive what my tax dollars are paying for, which is an education for my child, is a form of coercion. So basically, you will not meet the criteria for informed consent at all. Based on this, you not providing us with risks or benefits for wearing a mask, I had to do my own research. There are many studies that demonstrate that masks do not prevent the spread of viruses, including a recent Stanford study from April 19th of 2021, which was quietly published at the National Institute for Health.gov, NIH.gov, which proves that face masks are absolutely worthless against COVID. There are also many studies that show that the long-term mask wearing can even have negative effects on the wearer, including psychological effects, as well as physiological effects, including that of exposure to bacterial and fungus. So are you willing to take on the liability for any adverse effects on our children's health? These studies demonstrate breathing difficulties that are created and exacerbated by masking children. What is the school code on providing any restraint that negatively impacts breathing? Do you have a school code that allows you to put a restraint on a child?
Is there anything that specifically addresses mask mandate?
I'm asking about restraints that affects breathing. Do you have a code against providing restraints? I'm sure you do. I understand that it is difficult to make these decisions when you are dealing with a lot of emotion on either side of the topic, but your job is not to mandate medical decisions. You are the superintendent and the Board of Education. Please leave health decisions to the students' parents and their physicians, especially by allowing masks to be optional and up to the parents. I want to ask also, because at the last meeting, you said that no child will be tested without the permission, express permission of the parent. Does that still stand? Can you guarantee?
At this point, there's no requirement for us to have a child tested. We could recommend that you take your child, it's a quarantine, it's a close contact. In order for that child to return to school at an earlier time, you could recommend that you take them to get tested, and they get a negative test so they can return back.
I understand that there's some kind of incentive or something by the state to bring in a program for testing.
There is discussions about that. There's money out there available. We have not addressed that problem.
And that's not on the agenda tonight?
No, it's not.
Okay.
We have offered the COVID testing here, for people to come here voluntarily.
Okay.
We just had one last 2 weeks ago. I believe we had about 90 people. We're going to have another one in October.
Okay, but you're guaranteeing that my son will
I'm
not be tested?
I'm not guaranteeing, and I can't think that the state makes a recommendation or requirement for us to do it. I'm not going to say you're guaranteeing it. All I can say is at this point, we have not discussed it, and it's not on this agenda.
Okay, you're saying there's potential that he could be tested without my knowledge. That's what I'm asking you.
I'm not aware of it. I don't know. As far as behind school district, the answer is no, that's not the case right now.
Okay, thank you.
April, before you go,
Yes.
you asked a question about whether or not school code has the word restraint. It does, twice.
Okay.
Section 2902, and maybe our solicitor can elaborate on that, since he's here.
When you, again, just a reminder to board members, when you're talking, you need to hit your mic so it is.
Thank you. So you mentioned about testing. Did you see the reports that they're going to try to do testing as a group, so it's not considered individual testing on a classroom?
I just heard about that before I walked in here.
Yeah. And then also at college and dorm rooms, they were actually testing the effluent, the sewage of a particular dorm room to see if they had COVID within the dorm room so that they could isolate the entire dorm facility, which means this viral infection can be detected in sewage, which also then, when you realize masking as comparison to other areas of contamination that might occur within a school.
I have,
Did you say that was under?
I found it says section, I found it says section 2902, relating to unlawful restraint. All I did was I did a Google search under the word restraint under Pennsylvania School Code.
and how can I get some of this information to you? I'd like to email it to you.
Email it to Penny and myself. And
Okay.
we'll
All right, and let me be clear. If a parent wants to mask their kid, I believe they should have the right to choose to do that, but I should also have the right to choose not to mask my child. Everybody get that?
Rather, the copy that I have in my hand goes up to section 2702, so I can't comment on what you're looking at right now.
I'm looking at the legis.slate.pa.gov, Pennsylvania School Code of 1949, and then I did a word search for the word restraint.
Okay, and I'm on the exact same page, and the article stops at section 2702.
Okay, you can continue to look
I
at
guess-
it, move on to Ms. Collins, Janice Collins.
Maybe we should table that until we have such time.
I would like to read just a short excerpt from an article by Tyler Durden. Less than 3 months ago, the Centers for Disease Control published a mostly ignored large-scale study of COVID-19 transmission in U.S. schools, which concluded that while masking then unvaccinated teachers and improving ventilation was associated with lower levels of virus transmission in schools, social distancing, classroom barriers, HEPA filters, and forcing students to wear masks did not result in statistically significant benefit. How many of you have any biology background? Anybody? I have some, enough to get me in trouble sometimes, and not enough to help sometimes. But you can't see a virus except with an electron microscope. So these little masks, even the N95s, do not stop this virus. And how many of you know that this virus is over 99% survivable? I'm 67, and it's that survivable for me. Now, if you have coexisting morbidities, you need to take precautions for yourself. Now, these kids have virtually 0% getting this disease and really getting ill with it unless they have comorbidities. And I just, if you've ever, I don't know how many of you wore masks outside in the winter, but do this experiment or walk into a freezer, put a mask on and blow hard. You can see your breath, right? Which means what? The droplets are going through the mask, along with bacteria, viruses, whatever you're breathing. That's the crap your body doesn't want anymore. It's shoving it the hell out. You put a mask on, it's literally a diaper on your face. You're also setting people up, and I worry about seeing bus drivers masked for hours. They can get hypoxia. Do you know what that is? That's low blood oxygen. These kids can come to school with low blood oxygen. They have to re-oxygenate if they can take their mask off, so they can pay attention and learn something in school. Now granted, I had my one grandson, he passed out at school this last year. He passed out. They didn't even, it's not this school district, it's another one, and they didn't even call 911. They called his mother. They didn't dial 911. Needless to say, she jumped their asses, which she should have. I don't have any kids in the school district, but I have a lot of tax money that goes here. And I want to see these kids who were cheated for the last year at least on education. I know because I watch my grandsons when they were visiting, doing virtual schooling. It was a joke. It was a total joke, and I just hope that they can all catch up. You know, we used to be, United States used to be #1 in math and sciences and about everything. Where are we? We are way down that ladder. I think we're 40-something. It's appalling. And this learning that they're having to do. And another thing with the math, kids, even in the high school, they are still learning to read what facial expressions are. You can't get it all from the eyes. It's impossible. They need more. They need to learn these social expressions so they can function as an adult also. I always look at it as a kid, the minute you have them, they are experimenting on us. They have to learn from us, watching us, seeing our faces, seeing everybody's faces, and seeing your reaction, like, oh, if I kick somebody in the knee, I get in trouble, right? So I better not do that anymore. It may take 10 times before they learn that, or maybe not till they're senior in high school, but that's how they learn stuff, and they have to see the faces. The teachers have to see the kids' faces. Because if you've noticed, you can hide a lot. If you can't see from here on down, you can hide a lot. So, I'm hoping that, well, I personally am against masks for anybody. I believe in freedom of choice. Because I don't know anybody. And as I just, when reading this article, the CDC is not even forthright. So I beg of you, you've got to take whatever a government says, which is the CDC, with a grain of salt, and you need to research farther than these resources. Because when you dig down deep, you will realize the harm masks are doing, and you will just make it optional. And I want to ask, where is it written that it says that school buses are public transportation? Federal government? I think there's some question about that, but have you seen the written? Okay, because none of us adults can ride the school bus. We can't stand out there when our kids, our grandkids get on the bus and say, can you drop me down at Giant on your way to school? So I question as to whether it's really public transportation. That's all I can think to say now. So I just implore you, you've got to dig past. You can't find a lot of this stuff on Google. You have to go in other aspects. You have to go bitshoot.com. You have to go other places to find the real truth. Google Judy Mikovich. You'll find a lot of good information there on COVID. So, and there's a lot of doctors out there who are speaking out. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to go back to Mr. Bradley's previous question. If you're referring to section 182902, that's the criminal statute, and it's not in the school code, and that is a subsection of the kidnapping line of crimes, so it's not applicable to us.
Well, are you, but she has felt restraining a student.
And you cited the statute, and I want to make sure I'm referencing the correct statute that you're referring to, and that's a criminal statute, not applicable here. And it's not in the school code.
Section 2902 relating to unlawful restraint. You're saying that's part of the...
That's
it's not in the school
volume
code.
18. That's part of the criminal statute.
Mr. Cameron?
So wait, you're telling me that we're criminal if we're restraining a student inside our school?
That is a complete mischaracterization of what I just said.
Speak up, Fred. The mic isn't that good.
Can everybody hear me?
Sure.
Before I start, I just want to thank you for allowing me to talk. I have 4 children in the Untitled Chapter school district who are still there. to everybody that's here and myself and many of the people on the board have had children gone through the district, and I know that's important to them. My first question is, a year ago, I believe, we handed over all of the health and safety plan to the superintendent. Is that correct?
That was the resolution for the pandemic.
So while we're under a pandemic, any and all things go through Mr. Cleaver, is that correct?
According to the resolution, that is correct.
Okay. So in respect to that, all of my questions would be toward Mr. Cleaver. Will you follow the CDC and DOH guidelines to a T?
The recommendation that you have in front of you, the Safe and Healthy Plan, is a recommendation from the administration. The school board was not involved in developing that.
So based on the recommendation of the CDC and DOH and your review of it, there's one thing that I've been hearing a lot about that concerns me. Ginkgo is a company that is federally funded.
I'm sorry.
Ginkgo is a company that's federally funded that will go into districts if they opt in Pennsylvania and do mass testing. Many people don't know about it, but it's out there. On July 22nd, they had hearings out in Harrisburg about this matter. Initially, it was about a lot of the data breaches with these companies who are collecting specimens, because every person is attached to the specimen. So the main thing is that they wanted to get a company that would assure them there wouldn't be data breaches, which is important to everybody. However, it was stated that they will, if opted in, have a person from that group in our schools to do testing. If the CDC and DOH request that, is the Heighton School District going to buy it, opt in?
I can tell you I do not know a lot of that information, but I would bring something to that nature to the board for the approval.
So you wouldn't prematurely opt in on your own?
Unless I was told otherwise by the state.
I believe it is a huge matter when it comes to...
And to be completely honest, I'm not even familiar with it, so I just...
And I could send you the Harrisburg...
Fred, I listened to that hearing. The other stipulation was parental consent must be obtained to do the testing at the time.
At this point, I can tell you that there's no recommendation coming from me to have our students tested at any point.
With us signing the student handbook, would that indirectly authorize you to look at as a legal purpose with testing?
I would not believe that would put me on.
No, if you're developing the plan, I just need to know that in your estimation.
I'm just telling you that I will not make a recommendation of anyone to have our kids tested unless the parents gave approval for something to that effect.
And I think that everybody...
I'm telling you that right here, right now, I will not make that recommendation. Anything like that will have to come.
That reassurance is important. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Ms. Bose?
Okay, is this on? All right. I had not planned on stating this, but since everybody's been talking about the CDC and what they're recommending, there was a House of Representative from the federal government that asked the doctor about the CDC recommendation for masking of children in schools. Interestingly enough, he had not seen it, but the information that they are using was a study from India that failed peer review. That's what the CDC is using to recommend masking your children in school. Anyway, to get to what I was going to talk about, Financial matters, the reports. Why is there no expenditure by object report for the 2020-21 school year? I know it's not closed out yet, but we must have had expenses pertaining to that year. The one presented online is only for the 2021-2022 school year. And that was my question, why no update on last year's expenses? I would have emailed you, Ed, but I didn't have time today. I had flooding in the basement, I was dealing with that. Okay, Edmentum, Study Island. With all these online courses and learning that the kids are doing, how can parents monitor what is taught through online curriculum? Is there a way to do that?
Study Island will actually develop a report for the parents to see how their children are progressing.
Yes, but I'm talking about the actual curriculum, because I looked up Edmentum, and there's some questionable things in my mind that are available through them.
Right, but Study Island is the part, Edmentum's like the big picture of the company, and Study Island is the one that we're looking to use, yes.
Okay, because it didn't differentiate, it just said, oh, you have these free resources.
And next year will probably be a different name. They change names all the time.
All right, on personnel, the assistant superintendent contract. Why an assistant superintendent contract as opposed to assistant to the superintendent contract, which is what we have now?
The assistant superintendent individual we're recommending has their credentials to be a superintendent.
Right.
It also allows flexibility in signing and different things in the event of my absence. So there's more flexibility. The role is defined within that contract. Mr. Tack is retiring in December, so we're recommending for Ms. Howland to replace him. However, continuing this year as a high school principal, so we'll just work together. And so we will still have her as the high school principal for the remainder.
Okay, so she will be doing two jobs then,
As
December 1st.
As a group, we'll be doing it, yes. And we did make it December 1st because we like to have at least a month of transition to work with Mr. Tack, especially when it comes to the grant piece.
Well, how many days would that actually be as far as transition and for her to learn what needs to be learned? Well, it wouldn't be because you're going to be off school for part of that.
Right. It'll be a number of days, so probably 10 to 15 days. However, I know, knowing Mr. Tack, I feel confident that if he would either come in to help with the transition, even after that, then he would.
Okay, so you have answered the one question, who will be high school principal. Why was this not advertised? And I'll tell you why. Since Director Spinelli attributed the superintendent's shortcomings, rate good business and financial practices to his being an educator and not well versed in business applications, should we not be hiring someone who would address this lack to protect the students and the district? And I don't know if Sue is qualified there or not. I have no idea.
Right, the assistant superintendent role is really not that of a financial piece, that's why we have the business manager. That assistant superintendent role is an umbrella of curriculum, grants, and those other areas where Ms. Howland has been part of the elementary, middle school, and high school program. She's held leadership roles in both the elementary and high school programs as well, and has performed outwardly and above any expectation we can have. I will tell you that as a resource, I go to her many times for different things when it comes to.
Well, I don't have an issue with Sue. She seems
Well, no,
extremely
you're asking, I'm
intelligent.
just answering the question.
But my thing was, perhaps we should have someone that would complement your abilities. And, I mean, if Sue was the best candidate, that's fine. I don't have an issue with that. But I think it should have been opened up and advertised. That's just my opinion. She's also the LAVA administrator.
By record, because we need to have a principal. So actually, June Potts is a high school librarian, oversees the entire program.
So she's considered the principal of LAVA. Okay, I wanted to know what that meant.
You need to have an administrator to oversee that, yes.
Okay, and this one was answered, will we be opting into the weekly testing provided by the state? So you already said no. First reading of policies, 140.1. Extracurricular participation by charter cyber students. The $750 charge for administrative costs, is that what it costs the taxpayers for each and every student enrolled in an extracurricular offering per season?
No, I'll let Mr. Guerrero explain the formula that was developed. And again, this is not coming from, the tax dollars are already going to the cyber school.
Right.
This is coming back